up to another good morning. Time to go. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. We are all looking for adventure. We are all
Welcome back to the 3x5 Life
podcast.
One thought in 3 to 5 minutes and often longer.
3, 5, or 10?
Yeah, 3, 5, or 10 minutes. So in the last 2 episodes, we talked about movement. We are very strong believers in the dialing in the fundamentals, and the fundamentals really being eat, move, sleep. So today we are talking about sleep. We might dive into sleep on other episodes as well, but we just kind of wanted to talk about it because it's very top of mind.
Yes, it is.
Our 4-year-old has decided to wake up between the hours of 3:30 and 4:30 for the last 2 nights, and I literally feel like I'm hungover today.
Yeah, it's been a little rough.
Yeah, and normally he's a great sleeper, but he's woken up, and that's kind of like your REM pocket. So I'm usually up at 5 anyway, but him waking me up at 3:30 has just completely crushed me. So if I have bags under my eyes, if you're watching this on YouTube, I apologize.
It's interesting, too, that you say that because how it affects both of us is different because of our sleep profile. So for me, he laughs because literally I fall asleep in 10 seconds. Like I shut my eyes and I'm out. But if I get woken up for any reason throughout the night, I am up. Like my mind's going and I need to meditate. I need to get back to sleep.
Yep. Where
it's like the opposite. Like Bryan has a really hard time falling asleep, but then once he's asleep, he's usually pretty good.
Yes.
So it's interesting too to think about sleep and being very recognizing that what you need to sleep really well could be completely different than what somebody else does. So that's that self-awareness piece again, really looking at sleep and how your body reacts to it. But but we're both tired. The end result is we're both tired.
And if you haven't read Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep, it's a phenomenal read. It's life-changing. But one thing he mentions is, you know, if you go to bed at 10 and you wake up at 6, so that's 8 hours of sleep. Let's say you wanted to get up early and work out, or you had something going on, so you got up at 4. So you go to bed at 10 and you woke up at 4, so that's 6 hours of sleep, so 25% less sleep. But he argues that's not 25% less sleep because those early hours of the morning is really when you're in REM. So it really could for you be 50, 60, 70% of REM sleep. So that's why I'm hungover today.
Yeah.
Because I've had 2 days of interrupted, our son interrupting that window, that like 3:30 time, like as I'm in REM, and then I'm going to be getting up at 5. So it's just completely crushed me.
Yeah.
So
it's so interesting that there's, so much research around what our bodies do when we sleep, but we're still trying to figure it out. And, and even in this book that I was talking about when we were talking about the movement.
What book was that?
The Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life.
Okay.
They talk about what's happening in your brain and how that first 2 hours of sleep is when your brain is literally like doing housekeeping and cleaning out and filing your memories and all that stuff. But those last 2 hours, you're in your deepest REM sleep, and it's the longest period of your REM cycle. So what Bri said was, like, if you can prioritize any of those periods of time, you can literally, if you disrupt that with like your alarm clock going off at the wrong time, or you're in the middle of a sleep cycle, you can feel fatigue and like you're hungover. And so how do you combat that? Like what's something that you were thinking in terms of?
Well, I can't control my son waking up.
No,
or
right.
son waking up. But whenever people come to us, and for some reason within our circle of friends, we get a lot of people asking us like, hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. The first thing we ask them, the first thing you really ask them is, how's your sleep?
Yeah.
Like, and so many of our friends go to bed at 11 o'clock at night. You know, it makes
or
us
later. Yeah,
it makes us feel like we're old people because we were very strict about like a 9-ish o'clock bedtime.
In bed by 9, asleep by 9:30. We try.
There's some quote about the distance between depression and hope is a good night of sleep, or however it's phrased, and it's so true. When you have a really good night of sleep, you just feel more hopeful in the morning, and it drives everything in your life. So if there's areas you're struggling with, be it your diet, when I don't sleep as well, I eat more. It all relates back to sleep, and I don't think people take it seriously enough. And Matthew Walker even talks about, they did some studies with rats. I believe it's in the 80s, and they haven't replicated this study for obvious reasons. It's inhumane, but they kept rats up like constantly, and the rats died after 20 days. And I forget what the time was without food, but it wasn't that far apart from the sleep. And then they did the same study, but they just woke up rats within the REM cycle, and they died after 30-40 days. And then the non-REM cycle, they were keeping them up in the non-REM cycle window, and they lasted 50-60 days. So it just shows like you need your sleep to thrive and live and be healthy, and we need to start really prioritizing it.
I mean, that study, I think, highlights what you were talking about in the beginning, that 2-hour window. And I think, it is important to have a wake time, but it's even more important to have a consistent bedtime, because that period that you're trying to figure out, and sometimes it does take a little bit of experimentation. I mean, they say to be asleep by 10:30 is usually the best as far as following your biorhythms, but that could kind of wiggle a little bit for you. And you really have to kind of figure out, okay, if I'm waking up and I'm feeling groggy and fatigued, and like that's like when you hear people say like I'm not a morning person, a lot of times it's because they haven't figured out their ideal sleep cycle. And so play around with it. If you're waking up exhausted, then wiggle your wake time, or your bedtime really is the one that like is the most important. So go to bed a little earlier. Maybe it's 15 minutes, and see how you feel when you're waking up to that alarm speed. I mean, a lot of us can't control that idea of like waking up naturally because we have obligations. So that morning wake up is harder to manipulate, but that bedtime is something that you can kind of play around with.
Yeah, and that might mean you have to cut out the afternoon coffee or caffeine.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they say it has a half-life. What is it, 4 or 6 hours? You still, after your last drink of caffeine, like there's still a half-life of that in you. So be cognizant of that. And that could be a tough transition if you're used to always having your afternoon coffee or whatnot. And maybe you can fall asleep, without a problem after having coffee, but it's something that you should be cognizant of and play with.
I mean, I talk about sleep a lot with my graduate and master's degree classes, and when people ask like, where do I start? If you're looking for something to improve your sleep and help you get like the most out of the benefits of sleep, I always say it's that window of eating. If you can give your body at least 12 hours between your last meal and your first meal, that natural cleansing for your system is so great. And if you can try to make it so that you're, not eating an hour and a half, ideally.
Well, they say 3 to 4 hours.
I know. They do say 3 to 4, but that's really hard for people. So I usually say 2. 2 hours before sleep should be your last meal, so that your body is fully digested, and then your resources that are supposed to be going to, help your brain process all the things that happen during the day, your energy is not going to your digestive tract. It's going to immune system repair and helping your cells regenerate. So that's a place to start, just looking at when you're eating your last meal and giving your body that appropriate time to wind down. And that sets that internal clock that it's almost time for bedtime. And what then happens is your melatonin naturally starts to increase. And so you train your body to produce melatonin at a specific time of night, because you're going to bed at a consistent time of night. And so it really is like that schedule of finding out and optimizing it.
Exactly. So we encourage you to start analyzing your sleep and start looking at it and trying to get consistent with like Jessie said, the nighttime, and going to bed at a consistent hour every night. So any last thoughts?
No, and I would say, we like to give you like an action item, and maybe it's that. Maybe this week, do a self-awareness kind of check-in when you wake up. Maybe use your 3x5 card and use that as an opportunity with your AM gratitude to just give yourself, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how fatigued am I feeling? 10 being like I'm super energized, and 1 being like I'm exhausted. And then try to play around. But the important part is documenting it, because if you're making these little changes in true experimentation, you're only changing one variable. So if your variable is moving your bedtime around, then you can get a clear analysis of what is actually the cause of your fatigue. And then if you feel like that's dialed in, then maybe play around with that last meal that you're eating. Am I eating at 6, and how am I sleeping? Am I eating at 5? How am I sleeping? And so, I mean, I love experimenting with this kind of stuff, because the idea is to optimize, and the best way to do that is through trial and error. So maybe that's your takeaway this week, is to just kind of play around using your 3x5 card and doing that energy check-in in the mornings.
Energy check-in, and write maybe what time you went to bed and what time your last meal was. And then when you feel groggy, and then you wrote down the night before, I snacked at 8:30 at night or 9 o'clock, then maybe that's an indicator for you. So that's a great point.
All right.
Have a fantastic week.
Hello world, wake me up to another good